I'm a real big believer in supporting some of our younger bloggers who are trying to make a difference politically, because these are the people that will carry the argument forward for the next generation. I think Joseph Robertson would make an excellent MP. He's conservative to the core, he's only young, he's highly intelligent, he knows all the right people, and me as well, and I just think he does some sterling work. So, there's been all this uncovering with Doge in America about what USAID has spent their money on, including batshit crazy projects. Well, Joseph Robertson has he's basically done a thread on Twitter. I'm going to read it out. I've spoken to James. I've got the permission to do so. He's done a thread on just what our government has been up to, spending our taxes. Are you ready for this? Buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy international ride. The UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, the FCDO, has been dishing out taxpayers' money on a woke 1.5 million campaign to project gender equality in Nigeria, which include workshops on gender identity and sexual orientation. Dear God, they've still got hyenas as pets over there. Number 2, there's a long list. The FCDO spent $2 million on climate justice initiatives in India, focusing more on activism than practical solutions for sustainable development. This was supported by non-government organisations pushing for aggressive policies aimed at the actual activism. Then there's the £800,000 spent on diversity and inclusion programme, sorry, me saying propaganda, how naughty, programme in Kenya, where funds were used to create school curriculums that emphasise gender theory over actual education. The move sparked controversy amongst locals, questioning the relevance of their cultural values. Education is real tough to get, and to be fair, these young people that do get an education in Kenya value it. But the educational time is being taken up on this, what I call luxury topics. Diversity, equity and inclusion is a luxury topic. They need to know about maths, they need to know probably how to speak English would be a good one. And they need to get a proper education so that they can move forward. These are underprivileged kids, bearing in mind, that are coming from, in a lot of places, hellholes. It's a question of priorities, and I just think we miss the mark every time. Number 4 on the list. We can't heat pensioners' homes, but the FCDO still found $3 million for a global campaign against hate speech, which is a guise for censorship, contrary to progressive ideals. This includes funding for an organisation that advocates for speech restrictions. This is overseas as well, not just in the UK. Number 5 on the list, on the woke propaganda front, $750,000 was used for a transgender rights project in South America, funding workshops and public awareness campaigns, another cultural imposition rather than aid, especially when basic health and educational services are underfunded. They have an awful lot of stillbirths in South America, they have an awful lot of disease, and they have an awful lot of poverty. But we've decided that it's money well spent. Big thing to do here is always have a look at who's running these things and how much money they're earning, because it seems to be rather a well-paid position in all accounts. Number 6 on the list, the FCDO allocated £1 million for LGBTQI inclusion in the Middle East. In the Middle East, they're coming to our country because they're chucking off bloody buildings. Where such initiatives could provoke backlash rather than promote rights, highlighting a disconnect between the Western ideals and local realities. Yay, I bet you are. There's people coming here trying to get away from persecution, and we're spending how much? £1 million. Number 7 on the list, another $5 million for activism generated about the weather, the Green New Deal for Africa, focusing on policy advocacy for drastic carbon reduction, overshadowing the need for energy access, which could improve the quality of life through reliable electricity. These places that are getting this money don't have what we have. They don't have the luxury of switching a light on when they want, or getting heating, or even being cool. These are deprived societies, and we're spending money on these, what I'll call them, luxury projects, because I've got to be careful of the platform I'm using here. Number 8 on the list. In an iconic twist, whilst the UK struggles with its own energy crisis, 4 million went towards renewable energy advocacy in Southeast Asia, promoting solar and wind projects that are simply not viable without subsidies, essentially exporting a domestic policy failure. That's Joseph's interpretation of what's gone on there. But 4 million went towards renewable energy in Southeast Asia. At the same time, we're taking the winter fuel allowance in a cold country from our pensioners. Now, I'm going to draw your attention to Colonel Gaddafi. Not exactly someone you want to tell your kids a bedtime story, but nevertheless a dictator of evil deeds, but also with some pretty good ideas. Gaddafi's idea was to put a pipeline in, bringing water, fresh water, to so many places in Africa. That's when he was in power. If you lived in Libya at the time, I'm not saying he's a good guy, I'm saying sometimes bad guys do good things. If you worked in the country, your housing was sorted out, your education was sorted out, and your healthcare sorted out. People migrated from other parts of Africa to work in Libya because the conditions were so good. The shopping streets were tree lined. It was very nice, very similar to Lebanon, which was also known as the Paris of the Middle East back in the day when it was secular. But of course, Hillary Clinton, who left her ambassador there to get blown to bits with a terrorist attack at the actual place where he lived. Have we really done any good since we've gone into these foreign countries? These wars that we get involved in, the de-seating of evil dictators, what actually comes from it? Because nothing ever seems to improve. You've got to look at the way Biden's administration left Afghanistan. It was a bit like fleeing your homeland. You know, if there was a tidal wave coming, you'd leave in the same sort of disarray. I just think that we make a lot of mistakes in the West by interfering in other people's countries. And I could understand it if our country was run so well and we were getting everything that we needed. I'd get it then. But whilst we've got our own homeless, and whilst we've got pensioners with no winter fuel allowance, and whilst we are one of the heaviest taxed countries in the world, and when I say heaviest taxed, you've got to look at what you're getting for that tax. They're heavily taxed in Norway, but all the trains work, the flights go out on time, the airports are clean, the pavements haven't got big potholes in, the roads haven't got big potholes in. There's a pothole in a pavement in my town. There's actually a safety thing around it. It's a hole in the pavement, about the size of a manhole, that you could fall down. An elderly person might not see it. So what they've done, I think the bunting has been around it now for 6 days. Why isn't that just sorted out? We're spending money on batshit crazy projects, and yet the very infrastructure that previous generations have set up is being neglected. And the trouble is, the younger generation see this as the norm. They think it's normal to have untidy streets and uneven pavements that people trip up over. They think that's just the norm. So all the time our facilities go down and down. You're inviting people in from other countries that don't know anything any better, so they're not going to complain about it. Meanwhile, the political class get their wage rises, their index-linked pensions, their endless expenses, and just continue. I'm sorry, but when I watch them on Prime Minister's Question Time, all of them sat there laughing and joking. And I always like it when Lindsay Hoyle in that Lancashire, he's really a Lancashire hot pot, isn't he? Lindsay Hoyle, he's from Lancashire, like Charlie. And round Charlie, always have a lot of R's in the word, don't they? Like car, park, dark and hard. It has about 4 R's in it, that word. And Lindsay uses a lot of those words, even though he tries to talk in Lancashire posh. He tries to make out that he's not just as Lancashire as he is. But, I mean, don't be fooled by that homely accent. I think he's a turd. So, I watch him performing and I think, actually, have we really moved on from Burko? I don't know if we have. Because I just see so many inadequate people in Parliament that, the Labour Party front bench is thick as they come. That's the thick table from school. If you'd rounded everybody up off thick table and said, right, we're going to put you into politics. Well, all right then. we've really sunk and sunk and sunk. You've got a mixture of what I call career politicians, your Matt Hancocks and these younger ends that come straight from an institution, from one institution to the next. They go through school, university, then back into politics. It's institutionalised thinking. There's no free thinkers out there. David Davis is one of the last remaining politicians that actually worked in a commercial environment. And you've got these people that are being institutionalised, and that's what their thinking's like. It's like that. And you've got Keir Starmer, who wants to increase the weight of the public purse because the public purse is growing. Unfortunately, they're creating more and more pointless jobs and allowed to work from home. You should be in the office. You should be arse out of bed, up, showered, teeth brushed, get your comb over sorted out and get to bloody work. Don't spend 2 hours talking about... Someone sent me some emails, right, some screenshots of some emails. A public service department where these emails were flying round to each other within a department, and it was over a period of about an hour and a half discussing what sandwich to have at lunchtime. They were that busy. So we're being let down on every level. I just thought I'd read that little list out. That's much smaller fry compared to America. But it just goes to show that all these decisions are made, this spending is made. We've no clue it's going on. Nobody asks us. They just get on with it. And that in itself is wrong. And that's why I support reform. You know, I get sort of these stupid comments, especially if I go on someone like Paul Thorpe. I like Paul. I really like him. I think he's a sound bloke. But because I go on and I try and explain Nigel Farage's stance on anything, they say stupid things like, I'm sleeping with him. Maybe it's that the tantric sex that Sting and his missus used to do, you know, where you just think about it and have a bloody good time, because I've never left Lancashire. Nigel's certainly never been up to see me. So what are they on about? Can you not say that that's just a stupid comment? That what I'm talking about is politics, not the individual. I'm talking about the game plan of the Reform Party. I'm not talking about Nigel Farage. I'm no fangirl of anybody. I didn't even have pictures of David Cassidy and Donny Osmond on my wall when I was a kid. I never bought into fan stuff. And I hate it when I see people, oh, my hero. No, they're not heroes. Some are just doing the jobs better than others. And it's great to hear Rupert Lowe. It's great to hear some free-thinking, strong individuals that have now got into politics. You see, the thing is, they bullied Andrew Bridgen, didn't they? You know, they all got on his back and they wouldn't speak to him. You know, you just have to go for his lunch. Doesn't matter what you think about Andrew. I'm talking about how they treated him in Westminster. They didn't speak to him. All the staff did. All the people that worked there, the security, the cleaners and the cooks, they all spoke to Andrew. But the politicians, oh no, far too. Andrew Bridgen, he's lost the plot. That's how they treated Andrew, because he was only one man, they could do it. They can't do it to 5 of them, can they? They certainly can't do it to Richard Tice, who is basically very conservative thinking, even though he does put his foot in it. A bit like having an Uncle Knobhead in politics, isn't it? Anyway, that's just a joke, don't take it personal. And Lee Anderson, oh yeah, try and tell him what to think. And of course Nigel, who is a consummate professional and has managed to dodge these characters for 30 years. All these other people that come into politics, they're in and out, they're gone in a puff of smoke. And where's Nigel? Still batting away, swimming against the tide. And he's the face that gets recognised. As I've said before, the supermarket test, you need a face that's recognised. And Rupert's just a breath of fresh air. They're not going to take the mickey out of Rupert. He can buy and sell most of them, and guess what? With money he's actually made, rather than getting his money through politics, unlike the Kinnocks. Who have made... I'm always... People go on about people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's come from generations of wealth. He's posh. He's actually very nice when you meet him. I don't think he's totally... When I say sincere, that's probably the wrong word. I don't think he's totally upfront, but the politicians, they seldom are. But he didn't make his money in politics. He made it beforehand. And I'm always really concerned about people who make their money from politics. Like, where did Sturgeon get their money from? Where did the Kinnocks get their money from? Where do these people get their money from in the European Union? I mean, it's just madness when you think of the waste, especially when you look at it on an international basis. Anyway, I'm waffling down. I was going to do a quickie. Fortunately, I didn't say it to you, dear. I'm going to do a quickie because here I am still yatting on. My husband said yesterday, I'm really glad you're doing this YouTube tune because it's took the pressure off me having to listen to you. I said, what do you mean you don't even watch me YouTubes? He said, I've watched an odd one. Anyway, remember, everything in your life you put there that's any good. And if it's bad, it were probably the government.